Hi, I'm Hailey Phillips, and
I'm Steven.
Stephen is Stephen's here mostly to answer additional questions as we go along that I don't want to answer. And that's really what you're here for.
You're great at that.
Yeah. So the topic with my really great background is we're going to be talking about Azure Arc and Azure Update Management Center. I just did this presentation at MMS last week, and it was really fun to get to talk about some of the cool new ways that we can start progressing towards cloud native with all of our management, not just endpoints, but also with servers. So on the agenda, we're going to be covering why you would choose Azure Arc. We're going to walk through enrolling a server in Azure Arc. We're going to deploy updates. We're also going to patch server 2012 R2 and then talk about deploying critical updates. As you can see on this agenda, there is no item to discuss pricing, licensing, or any of those topics. So that is not what we're going to be covering. This is specifically how we would want to use Azure Arc in order to patch our servers. Azure Arc opens an exciting world of management in Azure with a lot of the resources that previously were not available to your servers. I won't be going into all of that. I do have a resource slide that you can all use and see all the cool things that you can do. But this is just to get Azure Arc 101, get everybody comfortable. This is what it is, and get an idea of what you could start doing in your own environment. All right, so as I already kind of teased a little bit, the why behind Azure Arc is most of us have started our journey into managing our endpoints in Intune. And with that, we have additional security mechanisms and features. You have log analytics. There's all kinds of fantastic things that you can start using to manage your endpoints. But what about your servers? Most of us have been managing them in Config Manager, and that just didn't have a solution in Azure. So Azure Arc really allows us to finally treat those servers like the first-class citizens that they used to be. And it's also the first step into Azure features like enabling log analytics, Defender. There's all kinds of fantastic extensions that you can start using that really level the playing field between your management in Intune and in Azure for your servers. All right, so for the server enrollment piece, I'm going to walk us through how we would go about generating the enrollment script in the Azure Arc portal. And then I'm going to run that script on a server so you guys can all see how fast it enrolls. And then we'll see that newly enrolled resource in the Azure console. So we're going to hop over to my handy dandy server. It's really exciting. So I have already, oh shoot, actually, let me back up. We need to even generate the script. Got a little ahead of myself. Okay. So to even get to Azure Arc, we're going to just start with portal.azure.com. And then I typically just search, and you can type in Azure Arc. It's obviously on my most recents. I've used it quite a bit. As we can see, that I had mentioned earlier, there's all of these fantastic features that we will not be covering. We're going to stick to the Azure Arc Resources blade. And to get enrollment started, we're going to click on Machines. As you can see, I already have some servers enrolled, but to get your servers to that point where you even see them here, we're going to hit Add Create, and we're going to click Add a Machine. For this demo, we're going to go ahead and enroll the servers as a multi-server. This is going to allow us to enroll with a service principal rather than having to leverage your own credentials and own permissions in Azure. So one thing that I do find really easy about enrollment is if you don't already have a resource group that you plan on using, at every point through the enrollment process and even management, you have the option to click Create New. So it's not a barrier of, oh man, I have to have my resource group set up. I have to already have my service principal. That's okay. You can create it as you're going along. I'm going to go ahead and choose my region. It's my favorite one. And then for connectivity methods, I'm going to choose public endpoint. For additional resources that I linked, talks about connectivity methods for a proxy server and a private endpoint. For authentication, so this is what is actually going to allow your device to enroll. We're going to do a service principal. Again, you could have created one, or we're going to just use the one that I have already created. And then we're going to hit next. So tags, this is going to be the piece that is really going to allow you to dynamically manage your devices. So is anybody using dynamic device assignments in Intune? Okay, so this is kind of a similar methodology. So I'm not going to put anything here for the physical location tags. These are just automatically populated here. They don't do anything unless you actually create a value here, but I'm going to focus on custom tags. You can choose whatever works for your environment. For me, what I start off with is a patching group. I've done patching dev, patching prod, etc. You can add quite a few of these. It really just is what makes the most sense in your environment.
So you'd position that as the ring-based deployment for server patching as an example.
Yes. Yep, exactly. Yeah, so I will call back to these tags in just a moment and we'll show you exactly what you can do with them. But if you can't think of a way that you want to set them during enrollment, you can still add those later. It's just a way to get you started. So, and then we have deployment methods. You can do a basic script. You can do config manager. I'm going to just stick with basic script. And then as you can see, when you go to download this script, you're going to enter that service principal client secret. So if you create a new service principal on the very first page, make sure that you save that secret. Otherwise, you're going to have to create another new one and go through this process again. I'm definitely not speaking from experience. All right. So now we'll hop back over into my server. So just really quick about all of these other methods that you can enroll. You're welcome to do. I've just found that just doing multi-server is the fastest and easiest way to do it. So that way you're not having to jump through authentication. Okay, so now I can actually show you how fast it is. So all I did was put the enrollment script on the server, and then I'm just going to tab over. All it's called by default is onboarding script. Hit enter, and then as we can see, it's installing the Azure Connected Machine agent. It's pretty dang fast. So I'll give it just another second so you can kind of just see, and then we'll hop back into the console because I don't know that everybody wants to sit here watching this screen. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go back to Azure Arc. Go to machines. And it's not there yet because I have very little patience. Okay.
So we all.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and pause really quick if there's any questions about enrollment before I keep going, since this is a very demo heavy presentation. Yep. Okay, great. Thanks for. Right.
So just out of interest for everybody in the room while we're waiting for that to go through, how many people are using Arc today or are using a Windows Update Server server patching?
Arc, I see customers using, and I do Defender for Cloud. So it's kind of makes things way easier. And that's all the conversation. Do I buy MD server license or do I buy from Defender for Servers? Arc is game changer. So I love it.
Licensing, no more.
Oh, sorry. I'm banned here. I know I'm banned here.
You say it's coming up with our customers more.
Yeah.
Because we can still take content in WSS.
Yeah.
So if you get the
Yeah.
servers on ARC pointed back to a WSS source for the third party stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
I have bad news for you. I'm also tagging you guys being like, hey,
Yeah.
actually, they've done a great job with this, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So. Yeah, so we'll pop over, and the next section, we're gonna cover Azure Update Manager. So one thing that is super fast is when you enroll this server in Azure Arc, it's in Azure Update Management Center immediately. I'll pop over and show that, but it's not actually doing anything yet. So as you can see, here it is, 2022. I'm gonna go ahead and open that. And here's the tags. This was a script that I had set up beforehand. So I forgot that I had put this tag in there.
Okay.
So, but as you can see, I have two different tagging options here.
Thing to note as well is you can hit the edit button there and
Yes.
add additional tags if you need to. So if when you've set it up, you've missed something, you can go and change that. Or alternatively, you're moving a device from dev to prod, because everybody has servers that end up like that. We're doing a proof of concept and it's dev, and then all of a sudden it's prod. So you can go and move that as needed.
Right. So now we'll pop over to Azure Update Manager. And I'm going to go ahead and click over here to machines. So as you can see, the newly enrolled server, it's here. That doesn't mean it's managed by Azure Update Manager yet. So a comment that came up during MMS was individuals being concerned that, oh my gosh, it's already being managed with this. What if I want to manage it some other way? It's not until you actually click and enroll, or you actually check for updates, that actually installs the extension updates. Now I have this one as well because we have no updates. So what I'm going to do, again, because I'm impatient, the first thing I do is just check for updates. This is going to run an assessment and ensure that the device is asking, hey, do I have any updates? And then we'll see those shortly. Now, at the same time, we see that we have two of these machines don't have update data. I just addressed that by hitting check for updates. So this is going to go away in just a moment. But we're also going to make sure that we have the devices set up for periodic assessment. So that way they're continuously prepped for updates. So we're going to go through, enable that now. And we're going to choose enable. One item of note, which, because this can look a little concerning, I can't do anything with any of these fields over here. The only thing I can change is periodic assessment. And that's because it's an Azure Arc enabled server. So that is a distinction where, so if it is a non-Azure native server, you're going to only be able to enable this periodic assessment. So, item to note. Do that. I'm gonna go ahead and hit refresh. So you can see it's already checking for updates. All right, so now we have the server enrolled. We have it checking for updates. How do we actually manage this and make our lives easier? Because that's the whole selling point of this is now I don't have to manage these servers in Config Manager, which is what most of us have been doing. What we're gonna wanna do is choose schedule updates. So I'm going to select all. You don't have to, but so the terminology that you'll see with Azure Update Manager is we're going to be creating a maintenance configuration. This is equivalent to creating your ADRs in Config Manager, where you're setting all of the update criteria, how often you want it to run, what servers it's going to choose. That's what we're going to be doing right now. I'm going to go ahead and just choose my resource group that I've used earlier, and then you can pick whatever configuration name that you want. And then I'm going to pick my region, and then it automatically populates to Arc enabled servers, so you don't have to change that. And I'm going to choose always reboot. That's what is going to make sense in my environment. I'm going to have this start tomorrow, and I'm going to have it run at 2 a.m. That's completely configurable. You can change time zone. And then I'm gonna just shorten my maintenance window. And then just like in Config Manager, we have options of how often we want this to repeat, and there's a decent bit of granularity. So let's say that I want this to run on Patch Tuesday, but I want to offset it by 1 day so that it runs on Wednesday. This obviously, we've already had Patch Tuesday elapse, so this isn't going to run until next month. Create end date just so I don't forget. Done that. And I'm gonna hit save.
What happens if you don't have an end date there?
It's just gonna keep going.
So it's just going to continually check every day where you say not to.
Well, so it's gonna periodically assess because we created periodic assessments, but the maintenance config is only gonna run on that schedule.
Do we know how often does it do the assess if we don't do the end time? Like, is it half an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? Do we know the cycle?
So it's in the, I need to go double check the docs. I wanna say that it's like every 4 hours.
That sounds good.
I can't remember exactly. I haven't checked that specifically, but we'll get you a better answer in just a sec. That's why Steve's here. All right, and then dynamic scopes. So tagging, this is where tagging comes in handy and really enables you to kind of set and forget and automate your management. So you choose your subscription, and then now you have the option to filter by. You can filter by resource group, you can filter by location, you can even filter by OS. I'm gonna go ahead and choose tags. And so I'm gonna choose patching and dev. So now we have this tag. And so anything with this tag is going to be something that's going to be caught in this assignment. What's great about this too is as I go to enroll new servers and I also assign that tag, they're automatically going to be assigned to this maintenance config after I've enrolled them in Azure Update Manager. So then you're not having to mess around with, oh, we have these new servers and now I have to go adjust the maintenance config and make all of these changes. The maintenance config is already set, and as long as the criteria on that Azure Arc server is set, it'll be enrolled in the maintenance config. And as you can see, these are the resources that I'll have, because I can also, choosing the resources, this is for you to not dynamically assign them. So you could like click here and click at each of these and just more granularly choose it. I'm not going to do that because I already set the dynamic scope. So I already know that all of these have that tag. And then updates. So I heard earlier individuals asking, well, how do I choose what updates I want to have set? This is the page where you would want to determine your updates. So because I really want to make my InfoSec team happy, I have chosen all update classifications for Windows. I also left Linux. You can patch your Linux servers in Azure Arc as well, which is fantastic because if they're hosted in another cloud or you have Linux servers on-prem, now they're going to be patched at the same time as your Windows servers. And it really helps kind of streamline and simplify your patching management. Then you can also include specifically by a KB. I wouldn't recommend that you do this unless you're having this maintenance config run one time, because otherwise it's going to essentially be obsolete after the time that it runs, because that KB is not going to be applicable anymore.
Would you put out of band KBs in there? Is that how you get?
I am going to cover that in just a second. I would not cover them in a maintenance config. We will get to that in just a moment. Yeah. And then tags, again, you can create tags based around this maintenance config. So that's another option that you can do to automate your environment. And so then before you hit create, here's everything that we set. It ran the validation check. I'm going to hit create. There's also an option to download a template for automation outside the scope of this session, but there's a lot that you can do. I'm gonna hit create. Analyzing the deployment. As you can see, there's the template. You can add it to your Azure library, or you can download it, you can deploy it. Things that you can do with that. Right. Azure Update Manager. I'm going to pop back over to my slide deck. So we've set a maintenance config and we've assigned to it. The big question and a huge reason that I know so many people have even found out about Azure Arc was, how do you patch server 2012 R2? Because I'm sure that none of us have that in our environment. I mean, I definitely didn't know about this because I was trying to figure out what to do with server 2012 R2.
I don't have 2012 in mind.
Hey, Steve.
I do have a lot of customers having this, even older than this.
Yep. You know, some of us had to come in and had lots of opportunity for improvement. So, so server 2012 R2, we can manage our servers in Azure Arc and assign extended security updates. That's how we're going to go manage devices. So what the next step we're going to walk through is just creating the ESU license and then assigning that. And then the server will automatically be added to that maintenance config because I have that tag on there.
On the context, I think for MD also, we have similar package, like a lot of customers who wants to install Defender for endpoint, they cannot do on R2 and whatnot. So we have one package which kind of helps them to do that. Kind of fine.
Okay, so as you can see here, for ESU status, if there is, if it needs to be enabled, you'll see it. This one I've already enabled, but this server that I had staged specifically for this demo, I haven't enabled an ESU yet. So it's just as easy as everything else that we've done up until this point. We're going to go to settings and we're going to enable an ESU. Then we would just choose type, and then I'm going to choose my ESU license right here. Now, if I hadn't already created it, it's simple to just click create an ESU license and you just choose the cores. There's the little info, learn more to decide exactly which is applicable in your environment.
So I'm going to add in the Microsoft lens here. Don't just go and turn this on. Also sit there and plan on how you're going to get off these servers that are in extended support usage. There will be a time when we stop releasing updates, period. So please have a strategy.
Sure you will.
Turn this off. You've got to bring us a big bag of cash if you want beyond that.
Isn't that what you're doing when you click the license ad?
It's a little bag of cash.
I can't imagine that doesn't
Bigger
involve a
one
bag
comes
of
later.
cash.
Yeah, just please have a strategy to get off using.
We had a death march 5 years ago.
Steve is very kindly adhering to the, we're not talking about, you're allowed to talk about licensing.
Oh, no, I'm not going near licensing, especially issue. I'm, that's no.
So
Conversation.
is there capability in the update agent here to do the OS servicing, or is it just strictly limited to the servicing updates for security updates?
So basically what your question is can you do the in-place upgrade via this like you do with Windows Update for Business?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. And that's just because as much as we would like your servers to not be snowflakes and these unique little devices, they are. And if
They're cattle, not pets.
they're pets,
Yeah.
more often than not. So
Yep.
do we have good documentation on how to do those in-place upgrades for server OSs? Yes, we really actually do. You can do, there is like very good docs around this. You do need to go each version all the way through. So you can go from 2012 R2 to 2016 to 2019, 2022 and still be supported, and it should just work. I put an asterisk there is should. There are things that do change. So if you do a config manager upgrade from R2 to 2016, for example, some parts of IIS change, but you just need to be aware of that. It will be called out typically in the docs.
To that point, I would encourage everyone that as you start enabling management like this, in the sense of we're trying to get to that point of having more uniform management where we get to cattle, not pets. So that's, I found this is a great stepping stone towards that. It's a great way to make recommendations to the business of, hey, this is costing us a lot of money to be still on server 2012 R2. Do you actually need for these servers to be used in this way? That's of enrolling your servers in Azure Arc is then you can start using log analytics. You can start doing a lot more of this analysis of your environment and see where you're actually using your resources so you can make the recommendations to be in a more unified and simplified environment.
Exactly.
So there was a question in the room about what do you do for those out of band updates? I have an entire slide about that. So I'm sure that it's never happened to anyone else where you get tapped on the shoulder by InfoSec of, hey, there's a specific KB or there's a specific thing that I needed you to install 5 minutes ago. There is a very easy solution. So again, we're going to be in Azure Update Manager, and there's this handy dandy one-time update. But it looks really scary because it's, oh, am I going to install this right now? And am I now going to install every single update? I have 29 updates, 25 updates, all of these updates. No, it's a very similar experience as what we had done with maintenance configs. You can select all the machines or one of them at a time, whatever you need to do. And again, you can choose the update classification. I'm going to leave all of them on except tools because I guess I don't want to patch tools. And then you can include the specific KB ID. But there also is additional granularity where you can exclude a specific KB. And you can also quantify the maximum patch publish date. So if you know that it's in the last like week or so that it's dropped or month or whatever increment, now you have a bit more control over that and kind of have a better idea of what to expect in your environment. So we're going to go ahead. I'm not going to choose all of those actually because I clicked everything and I don't install all of those. So I'm just going to choose critical and I don't have an update in mind. So then I'm going to choose reboot if required, and then I'll just do, this essentially creates a maintenance window that starts right now once I hit next. Then it's just going to show, hey, installing critical updates on these 7 machines. Now, if I would have included those KBs, it would have listed those specific KBs, also those excludes, and then thing would have been right here. Go ahead and hit install, and then it's running an assessment and having those machines check in and install. Does that answer your question about out of band?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. Right. So that is truly how easy it is to get started with Azure Arc. Now, I'm happy to go back in and we can cover things that maybe I went really quickly through, but the whole point that I kind of wanted to hit home for everyone is just how easy it is to start your journey into not having to manage these servers in such a granular way anymore. During the break, I had kind of mentioned it, but previously I had felt like I needed to pick every single KB, completely scope it out, have all of this just really nitpicky control. And what was it actually affording me? So how I kind of got to a point of being able to adopt this and really just lighten my load so much is I picked a handful of servers that I knew that weren't weren't mission critical. And then I started messing around with, okay, let's just install all of these updates. And then if there is something that I'm concerned about, I just delayed my maintenance window for a few days after Patch Tuesday. So that way I could see, is there anything coming down that we're concerned about? And then developed a bunch of confidence in the process. And so now management for servers has been really, really easy for me and has started me on the journey of being able to assess what resources we're using. Do we even need these servers? Who's accessing them? Using Defender. So that's the big selling point for me and what I've seen other people as I've talked to them about Azure Arc. I have all of these resources and I'll happily share them, but there's a lot that can be done with Azure.
So there's a question in the chat from Bill. How do you manage third-party updates with Arc?
I knew that question was coming.
Of course it was.
Well, I mean, so Patch by PC can get them into WSUS. So if you can get the servers pointed to WSUS, you can technically still have them evaluate against those and install. In the simplest sense.
And it also comes down to, yes, patch is a great option. Do recommend it for your WSAS managed devices, but if you're looking at your Linux devices and things like that, you can look at what is your deployment mechanisms that you're using there. Do you have Chocolatey? Do you have Ansible? Do you have Octopus? That's where you can then go and manage the deployments there as well. So it all comes down to how you're managing your servers, because that's the complicating factor. Arc isn't a full replacement for Config Manager. It's not an application deployment mechanism. It's an update delivery and reporting mechanism for the high level. It does a whole heap of other stuff, but for this circumstance we're talking about it for those two scenarios. Does that make sense?
Arc technically connects your on-prem server to the cloud so that you can manage from the cloud control plane.
You're reminding me, I had a terrible joke that, or like, you know, pun of like Arcs, your on-prem servers
yeah,
to
yeah.
Azure. And
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you for reminding me.
And in my world, as I'm doing security, so Arc is kind of game changer. So I was talking about vulnerability management, right? So you can enable Defender for Cloud on-prem servers. It'll install MDE. It'll give you Defender for vulnerability management. So that's another aspect. Like you manage your updates, you manage your security, everything. The way you are doing on-prem, everything goes to the cloud. You're managing from update management or Defender for Cloud. That's the simplified vision that we are looking at. So things would be easier. But there would be all those cases like third-party patches or some of the things doesn't work, but mostly 80% of scenario would work very simplified fashion.
Exactly. And part of the big selling point that, because the question has come up with myself and my team of how are we installing third-party updates to begin with? Well, we're going to be moving away from Config Manager. So now we need to look at, well, how are these servers even getting their applications to begin with? So let's move that and modernize that. And so that's something that we're looking at. And with all of the time saving from Azure Arc being managed and Defender and all that, it really enables that skill building of moving away from on-prem management.
And for any transition from on-prem to cloud, there are two options. Do you take everything that you have on-prem, you go there, or the point that you mentioned, like when you are transitioning, it's like evident to look back what you need. Any applications that you don't need, you are not going to use in cloud. So that's kind of gives the opportunity to retire some of the things, clean up so that you have a clean slate or better vision for your cloud, how you're managing.
Exactly. Like similar to, as we're all having those conversations of having, Entra managed Intune devices, why would we bring all of our GPOs that have been written for the past 15, 20 years and force them into Intune? We're doing a closet cleanup.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like we've done a huge home remodel essentially is what we're doing. And so, for our environment and, I've heard about this from others, this is a great option of, we've had stuff installed on servers that were like, why in the world was this here to begin with? And it's a really great way to be like, well, this wasn't supposed to be here to begin with. So now we have clean servers and, you can become really good best friends with your InfoSec team of, nope, this is how we're managing going forward. So.
Do on-prem servers have to be intra-joined to take advantage of Arc?
So that's the best part about Azure Arc is I can't speak too much to my personal environment, but the method that I just did to enroll, if you can run a script on the server, you can enroll it. So it's
And it can talk to the internet.
yes, well, yes, that with a caveat, you could also do the private endpoint so there's a lot of really that's what makes it so much easier to manage is.
That's why you can do it on your servers on Google Cloud, Amazon Cloud,
Yep.
That's just
your on-prem or your VMware, whatever. So I think that point was spot on. Any server with connectivity and you can install the script. That's it.
And the important thing as well is cross-domain as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you
That-
can sit
yeah.
there and manage 5 different domains, your DMC,
Mhm.
every environment through the one Azure tenant. Because it's not linking the identity. All it's sitting there and saying is, this is my management agent. And this is how I'm connecting with the client ID and secret.
In our environment, we have like 3 different domains with one-way trusts.
Yeah.
And we have a tenant set up for one of them. And we're trying to simplify
Yeah.
Yeah.
this. So not having to join it to a tenant like you do with your other domains.
Exactly.
That makes it a lot easier.
And as of today, like whenever you're thinking about Arc with security, there are few agents that you need. Arc, you need Microsoft Monitoring Agent or Azure Monitoring Agent, guest configurations or whatnot, and with Defender for Endpoint. But going forward, you can think about it will be Arc and Defender for Endpoint. No other agents would be required. With this, I think you can solve all the things. And I think one of the things she pointing is SQL Server. Out of your on-prem fleet, if you have SQL Server, you have AMA, and you can turn on Defender for database as well, so that nobody is doing database security, right? So that can be covered also. I think Arc is kind of doing all the things together. I think this title I like, Gateway to Azure Resources, everything that you have.
And the great part is there's so many extensions. So like if you're using Datadog, there's a Datadog extension. Like there's so much. And so kind of what Kyle was showing earlier about reporting, now you can start using log analytics and you could create a single pane of glass between your Intune devices and your servers. That's pretty great. And then if you're using Defender, now you have even more rich data that you can call and create really, really great reporting. So it's just the beginning. And so that's kind of why this presentation is meant intentionally to be short, is to kind of encourage and empower folks to feel ready that like, hey, let's just get a few servers enrolled. Let's see how this works. And then once you see for yourself how much it simplifies and unifies your management, it kind of sells itself.
And I have a lot of customers, they are not like big into cloud, not very sophisticated. They are in that journey from on-prem to cloud. The first thing that they are doing, arcing their servers. So once they arc them, they can do Defender, they can do update management on the SQL Server, they can do Defender for database. It's kind of creating whole new like good world for them, because they don't have like containers or fancy Azure services, right? Their Azure subscription is just to enable Arc, maybe Sentinel or something like that to get started. So it's a very good story with Arc.
I didn't add this slide until Kyle did his. So if you have more questions and want to talk about Azure Arc, I'm on Twitter. I'm decently active there, but I also blogged about this as well at my website, which is the same as my Twitter handle. So that I have a blog post with all of these steps and screenshots, but it really is this simple. So I'm excited to hear how your journey to the cloud goes as we're kind of all in this together and figuring out how we better secure our devices.